Lori, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you again.
It's great to see you again. I love how when we first connected for our pre-interview, we probably spoke for about 20 or 30 minutes before we ever actually started talking about podcast stuff. We hit it off right away, and I love that so much.
Our journeys are so similar. It's crazy.
They are, yes. There's so many running themes in there that are totally on the same page, and I love that so much. I think that's a great place to start. You're very passionate about the work that you do with EFT. You're very passionate about helping your clients, but your personal journey is very fascinating, and I'd love for you to start there and share a bit more about your personal journey and how you came to find this work.
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay in California. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was one of those classic latchkey kids. And my father was a probation officer, and my mom was a Catholic school teacher. And with respect to the theme of your show, emotions were really not allowed in our house. Well, my mom and dad were allowed emotions, but when it came to my sibling and yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. When it came to my sibling and it came to me having emotions, it wasn't okay. Or, big themes, big important stuff that was going on would tend to get just, swept under the rug. And that always felt really difficult and challenging for me. I was always a really big truth seeker. And I also felt like this doesn't make sense, especially with respect to the work that my parents did. They both worked with children, and they would come home telling their stories about working with these children and the emotions that they would have. And I just felt like my sister and I couldn't have the same sort of respect or dignity or space to have that. So I didn't know then that that was going to lead me to where I am now. But eventually I became a probation officer like my father did. I got a master's in criminology and a bachelor of science in anthropology, and I sort of didn't know what to do with my life. And he actually made the suggestion that I become a probation officer. And so I did. And I started working with a lot of incredibly interesting people, needless to say, who grew up in a lot of broken homes. They were adults by the time I was working with them. I was an adult probation officer. And I just saw how they really had a lot of untapped potential, and that people really hadn't given them a chance because they were given labels, and many of them, of course, were repeat offenders. And people said, well, this is pretty much going to be your life. You're just going down the trajectory of crime. Therefore, you're pointless, you're useless, you're hopeless. And I didn't see them that way. I really saw them at my young 24 years of age when I became a probation officer as just needing a listening ear and somebody who believed in them, and somebody who says, hey, I see this in you actually, and you really do have the ability to make something of yourself. So I ended up in that world for almost 10 years as an officer, but I didn't care for the hierarchy in working in the criminal justice field. I also didn't like that. I felt that my own personal freedom was really compromised. The
Mm.
FBI would investigate us, every 5 years to make sure, of course, that we were ethical people, which I understood. But I just really kind of didn't feel like an adult working in that environment. And it was early 2002, I'd say. I just finished my master's. I first started as a county probation officer, and then I became a federal probation officer just as I was finishing my master's in criminology. And I was looking through an old magazine that I had. The magazine just literally opened up to the middle, and there was an article I'd never read. And I probably had that magazine for about a year, and it was called What is Life Coaching? And this is like I said, early 2002. And I was like, yeah, what is that? That sounds so cool. I mean, the industry was new then relatively, and I had not heard of life coaching. So I devoured this article. And at the back of the article, there were all of these schools that were accredited by the International Coaching Federation. So I chose one, and I went through that program. And there were only 14 of us in that program, and it was on a
Wow.
bridge back then. Yeah. So we got on the phone on this bridge line and never saw each other's faces. And actually, my coaching buddy, we had these accountability buddies in that program. He said, I like the program that we're in, but I don't feel like it's enough. I said, yeah, I'm feeling the same. And we had both looked at this other program before signing up for this one. And it was in the area where I lived back in the Bay Area in San Francisco, California. So he was from Texas. He said, well, I'm going to go and do the first part, like a 3-day training. I said, if you come, I'll pick you up and I'll drop you off there to the school. And he went, and after day one, it was like full day. I picked him up and I just saw on his face, it was like the most mind-blowing program that he had ever participated in. Just based off his reaction, I signed up. And that program was in person, experiential, and it really taught me how to be a true coach. And that was about a 2-year program. And we were also tasked with starting our businesses, our own coaching practices at the same time. So that's what I did. I was still a federal officer and I had a part-time coaching practice. And after about 3 years, I went full-time. But part of my dream, like to be held accountable and to say, okay, I can be a coach too, is I had always wanted to live overseas. So, and the beauty of starting a coaching practice was, everybody was telling us you can work from your laptop. And I was like, this is the win-win. This is what I'm going for. So yeah, after about 3 years, I gave my notice at my federal career, and I had my practice full time online, and I moved to Spain. And then I moved to Angola, Africa. I got some projects. And then I moved to Kuwait, and I ended up staying in Kuwait for about 8 years. And then I met my Dutch husband, whom I live with now in the Netherlands. And along the way, I had always been working on myself, and also it's part of our mandates that we have to have ongoing continuing education.
Mhm.
So I had discovered emotional freedom techniques, EFT tapping, in 2010. And I just used it for myself and paid an EFT tapping therapist. And then as my life got further and further into this work, I decided that I wanted to become an EFT tapping therapist as well. So I did. I finished all of that and became an advanced EFT tapping therapist. And also along the way, 10 years ago, human design entered into my world. And that's where I really said, I'm going to bridge these two modalities that I'm trained in. And every time I meet with a client, I customize their sessions according to their human design chart. So that's really a
Amazing.
condensed version, Livy. I hope I made it small.
No, that's fantastic. And, it's so funny, these like little life moments that at the time seem so potentially small or relatively insignificant. I mean, literally a magazine opened up and it changed the course of your life. Like, I find that so fascinating. And then you just went on this, complete discovery journey. And yeah, I love it so much. Thank you for sharing. It's such a great
You're
way to get to know you and to yeah, share your journey with the audience. It's just fantastic.
I'm still searching for the magazine. It was Shape magazine, and it was a yellow cover, I remember, because I had a subscription to it, and I was just collecting the magazines. Like, there was like a pile on the floor, and I would just thumb through and look at the moisturizers and read, like the 5 best ways to get in shape or whatever. But I wasn't really like reading the articles. And I know it sounds so fantastical, but really it did open up into the middle, and that was the article that was there, and it did change my whole life.
I love that. It's so cool how
Crazy.
that happened. It was absolutely meant to be, clearly.
It really was, yeah.
So now over, the last, I guess, decade or two, you've been helping people, and EFT is obviously, like you described, a huge part of your practice. And I love how you've integrated human design into this as well to really personalize it. Let's talk about EFT first for anyone out there listening that perhaps hasn't heard of it or maybe has heard of it but isn't quite sure what it is. Why don't you fill us in on what it is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. So Gary Craig, who's also from California, he's the developer of EFT. And actually, Gary had been attending training from a clinical psychologist named Dr. Roger Callahan, who had created what was called thought field therapy. And Dr. Callahan, he had been making some headway with his clients, but he was noticing that some of them who had phobias, for example, and heavy trauma, he was really struggling to get them sort of over the hump, if you will. So he decided to start to study kinesiology and understand really how the body works. And he created thought field therapy, which was just tapping on certain parts of the body while freely talking. He might, talk to his patients or his clients, and then hear a certain thing that they might say and draw a correlation between where they would feel that in the body and ask them to tap on a particular part, and basically to like neutralize the meridian or recalibrate the meridian. His biggest aha moment was he had a woman, I think she was called Mary. That's at least what we we're taught in school with EFT. And she had a phobia of water ever since she was really very small. It was really a big struggle for her. And apparently she had been working with him, I believe, for 11 years. And they had gotten to her to maybe be able to be in like half an inch of water or whatnot, but it wasn't really that much headway. And this one day she called him and she said, my phobia is at an all-time high. It's the worst it's ever been. And Dr. Roger Callahan said, tap under the eye, because he heard her say that she could feel this energy of nausea in her stomach. And the moment that she did that, it was so bizarre, but she was like, I'm not scared of water anymore. Like she knew that he had a swimming pool at his home office. She said, I'm going to come over and I'm going to jump in your pool and I'm going to prove to you that I'm not scared of water anymore. And she then hit all of the talk show circuits talking about thought field therapy then. Well, Gary ended up training under him. And Gary is an engineer by trade. And he saw that it's like Dr. Roger had all these different combinations, like all these different algorithms, different tapping recipes, if you will. Let's say you're addicted to chocolate, for example. So you do this one tapping rhythm, and then you have anxiety over here. So you do this other tapping recipe. And Gary thought this is just really complicated in a way. People aren't going to be able to remember this. And can we find a way to have just one basic recipe that everybody essentially could remember so they can tap on their own? And the key was, though, to find all of the tapping points that would hit up every single meridian in the body. And so Gary found that. Gary did that. And then that's when he created also a script that you would say. So people who are familiar with EFT tapping know this is what we call a setup statement. Even though I have this problem, I accept myself anyway. And Gary is the person who created this script. And then he also created more parts of the script, if you will, as you go through the various tapping points on your body. And essentially what EFT does, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. So there are more techniques than just the tapping that we're trained in. And so people know it as tapping therapy, but we're also trained in visualization techniques with EFT and so on. But what Gary discovered was it was really rewiring the brain, and it was also helping to release belief systems that people were conditioned in, because you're acknowledging the limiting belief or the limiting behavior first when you say, even though I have this problem or even though I have this belief. And you're also inviting in the possibility of a new belief or a new behavior when you say, I love and accept myself. Or you even say, I invite in the possibility of loving and accepting myself. So when someone comes to work with an EFT therapist, we're usually working on, where do you feel the energy of the emotional intensity of your problem or your challenge in your body? So it's very somatic. So you're really getting connected with what it feels like in the body to hold this emotion or this belief. And then we start tapping through the tapping points, which helps rebalance your meridians and frees up the emotions from the various organs that you have in the body, where that emotion has turned into perhaps a stuck or stagnant behavior. And what ends up happening with that emotion, because it is energy, the more that it builds up, essentially, the more that it actually can disturb your rational thinking, and also can cause you to result or revert to default behavior that might be a bit disempowering. So the more that you do EFT, either with a practitioner or you start your own self-tapping practice, ideally, you're going through the core emotional cause that is bringing about your ongoing challenges and issues. So I always recommend that people don't just tap on their own, like first actually work with a tapping therapist, because we're actually looking for releases when you're tapping. There are certain types of EFT releases: yawning, coughing, breathing deeply, crying, laughing hysterically, runny nose, but also certain things that you say that express a cognitive shift that let me know, oh, something's happened here. You just changed, something dramatic, a radical transformation happened. And when we're looking for that emotional disturbance and the cause of it, a lot of the symptoms that you have been manifesting could be physical pain, it could be repeat behavior, self-sabotaging behavior. Ideally, it starts to sort of dissolve on its own. That can take a bit of time. When I'm working with someone, I'm also teaching them how to have their own self-tapping practice without me on their own, and how to tap and what to say and what to ask themselves and what to look for. And also, part of it is simply relieving. So if you're about to go into a meeting at work that's really stressful, I can tell you how to tap and where to tap, before you go into that meeting, for example. And you might not have to look for a core emotional cause right in that moment, but at least you can bring yourself to a place of equilibrium, if you will, and relaxation. Yeah, so that's the essential of it.
Fantastic. I love, just that last part that you said, that you can essentially use this technique in the moment when you're reacting to something right then and there. Like you said, you're about to go into a meeting and you're anxious about it, et cetera. Or you can focus on, emotions and energy that's really stuck in the body that are perhaps there from, childhood or
Yeah.
long-term things that are part of who we are. And you can begin to, as I'm imagining, quite a few sessions and quite a bit of work needs to be done to get those really stuck emotions that have been there for a lifetime, but it works in both ways. And I find that
Yeah.
fascinating. This is just, yeah, this is incredible work. I love this so much. So there's one word that you said that I'd love for you to just explain a little more. I've done a little bit of research myself on EFT, but just for those that, again, haven't heard of this before, you mentioned the meridian lines. Can
Mhm.
you just explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, and I'm probably not even going to be the best at explaining it. I'll be very candid. So it is said that in traditional Chinese medicine that we basically have like these electric currents that run down both sides of the body. I'm not an acupuncturist, but so an acupuncturist probably would explain it even better. But our
Sure.
tapping points in EFT are the same points essentially that an acupuncturist would take their needle and put into. When this, it's like electric circuitry, if you want to look at it like that with respect to the meridians. And when they are out of balance, or out of whack, then that is where we become imbalanced, and we can become imbalanced emotionally. So for example, I'll just share with you that the tapping point for the spleen point is right under the arm. But we do tap, you can tap on both sides because the meridians are balanced and they run both down both sides of the body. So that's a really
Okay.
short kind of answer for you.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that makes perfect sense because, we're talking about emotions. Emotions are energy. We as human beings are
yeah,
basically just a big ball of energy. Now we're talking about these electrical currents that,
yeah,
like you said, keep us balanced. And if they're out of whack, it makes sense that, we put our own energy, our own fingertips, our own attention physically and mentally to that point, and it's going to affect the currents. That was a fantastic explanation. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, and then they get rebalanced, they recalibrate essentially, and the energy of those emotions becomes released. So when we are tapping, people will say to me all the time, "I can't believe I'm crying," and or I'm laughing, or I can't believe I'm coughing, burping, yawning, passing gas. Oftentimes, it's literally the residual energy that has gotten trapped, if you will, in the body, and that has disrupted that natural meridian system, that natural flow, that chi that we have, that life force. And you'll see it, when I'm working with people, I can see, the light, for example, might be gone from their eyes, or their face is a bit, the luminescence is gone, the luminosity isn't there, that radiance isn't there. And they'll say it themselves, like, I just feel like my life force is gone. And it is because so much of that energy has become stagnant and the meridians aren't working or functioning at their optimal level.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. I love that you described, as a trained practitioner in this, you're noticing these things, you're noticing these subtle changes. I myself, I watched a couple of videos on it. There's a course in Udemy that I flipped through very briefly, but that was just kind of me sitting in the mirror, doing it on myself. So I actually didn't realize that, to pay attention to these subtle changes, like you described, symptoms, if you will, like the burping, the yawning, the crying. It makes sense though, because we are moving the emotion and that is, the energy then being released. So it's making me understand more how important or how pivotal it is, especially in the beginning of someone exploring this practice, how it would be to do it with a practitioner so that you're getting that kind of feedback as well and understanding, oh, yes, okay, like it's working, so to speak, or here's the evidence that the energy is being moved. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And Olivia, if I can share this one thing, I've had this happen with a lot of people where they've just gone on YouTube, for example, never have worked with an EFT practitioner, and they have just started tapping with, some of the short 6 to 8 minute videos that are on YouTube. And oh my goodness gracious, unfortunately, they let out too much trauma too fast, didn't even know that they had trauma. And all of a sudden now they're in what we call like an ab reaction, and they don't know what to do. And they're really, really, bringing on a panic attack sometimes. And this is also, now I don't want to say that you can't ever watch a video on YouTube, you can't ever tap, not at all. But if you are aware that there is some big trauma sitting there, then I would recommend working with a practitioner first, because we are trained to on how to work with it, on how to deal with it. And we don't ever have to go directly into the trauma. We have a phrase in EFT called sneaking up on the trauma, where we can help you work with the trauma, process it, clear it, heal it, without ever having to really go into it, with some of the emotional freedom techniques that we're trained in. So now the other thing is, oftentimes people don't know that they've got trauma. And then if they're waking it up, by doing an EFT video that they're not aware of might wake it up, then yeah, they can feel like they're spiraling out of control, and that can feel really terrifying. So that's always why I do recommend working with the practitioner first. It's not to say you can't have your own private individual self-tapping practice. You most certainly can. But just to understand what it does, how it does work, that you are doing it safely, and that you do have somebody that is going to be able to guide you through anything that does potentially come up safely. I mean, I've had it happen myself, when I was becoming an EFT therapist myself, and I was going through working with other therapists in training. I didn't realize that I had a lot of trauma. I didn't know I was high functioning. I had no clue. And then I've been going down my own journey now for, a decade. Yeah. And I have my own self-tapping practice. And I also work with other EFT therapists who are trained like I am, to really make sure that I'm cradled in safety on these bigger issues.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. I did have a question as well, just kind of a little bit of a personal question. I'm curious if you've ever experienced this with other clients. I find for me, in all ways, I'm quite kind of sensitive in my face. Like if anyone's kind of near my face or touching my face, for example, if I'm ever, getting my makeup done or even getting my, say, eyebrows waxed or something like that. And I noticed it with EFT, even when I'm practice it a little bit on myself, that I kind of get almost like squeamish about like touching, like I can do it for a minute and then I kind of want to like shake and stop, and it almost makes me uncomfortable. And if I'm wondering if there's something else kind of going on there, that I'm almost resisting the healing, or is it simply just I'm sensitive and I don't like those areas to be touched? Have you ever experienced this with any of your clients?
Yes, I have. And in fact, not necessarily the face like you mentioned, but I had a woman. You can use just one hand when you tap, or you can use two as you go through the tapping points. And I told her, it's your choice. And I was just using one while she was mirroring me, because I was having a shoulder issue. She asked me, "Can you please use both of your hands? Because I'm very into balance, and it feels imbalanced that you're only using one. And I want to use both my hands on me," she said. I said, "Absolutely, no problem. That's perfect."
Mhm.
So regarding your question with respect to the sensitivity on the face, the first thing that I would do is I would do what we call a little detective work, and find out if you ever remember any specific events when you were younger, or even a teenager or whatnot, that had to do with your face. And we could actually, to get you to the point to be able to tap on your face, actually tap on the fact that you feel like you cannot tap on your face, or that it does feel sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah, and also just give you permission that it's okay that you're sensitive. And if we don't have to tap on those points, then we wouldn't tap on those points. We can tap on other points, and perhaps build up to tapping on, to the points on the face. But that would be my starting point. Is there ever a time that you remember something happened on your face, or something was coming close to your face, or something felt traumatic or scary, with respect to your face?
Okay. Excellent. I hadn't thought of that. That sounds like a really great place to start.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah, because there's more than likely something underneath that.
Right. Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's almost as if it's not even me that's pulling away from myself when I'm doing it. There's this other energy there and it doesn't quite
Yeah.
make sense.
And that's such a great way of describing it. And I think that is when people come to work with me, that is what they're going through. They're like, I know this isn't me, but I don't, but it's here. And yeah, this emotional disturbance, it's kind of like a hijacker in our body that does take
Yeah.
us. Yeah. And all that is really required, that's the beauty of EFT, is greeting it and acknowledging it and naming it. And then also making you feel safe to know that you're the person that can invite the possibility of either working with that part of you, or if it doesn't belong to you, like you said, I don't even feel like this is me. It's where did it come from? Did mom have something with her face, or did dad have something with his face, or a sibling or something? I uncovered that myself with my own EFT tapping sessions, that I had a lot of these beliefs about how marriage was supposed to look or how something was supposed to be. And so much of it was from my mom. There were just these statements that my mom made throughout my whole life. And I didn't really realize it, but they essentially became my belief system, or a part of my belief system. And then as I started to keep up my EFT tapping practice, I go, is this even mine? Is this belief even mine? And then I go, oh my God, no, it isn't. And so then I invited the possibility of replacing that belief with my own, with a more empowering belief. So yeah, that's where I would go with you, is like, I wonder, is this something that happened to mom or dad, or, somebody in your life, or did something happen, maybe the dentist or something, your first time at the dentist and bringing something toward your face. And we do detective work too. Yeah. Bring up some, not to necessarily dive into the trauma, but just to know essentially when it very first started, when it very first happened, that
Okay.
feeling.
Fantastic. And, just a really good kind of example that you just shared too of some transgenerational trauma, which I do actually talk about in another episode with another guest. So interesting that it
Mhm.
ties in as well. Yeah. And then so
Yeah.
curious as well. So you're obviously, it's a physical practice that, when you have people come in, you work with clients or you're physically with them. Can you do sessions via, Zoom or virtual,
Yeah,
kind of?
actually, that's funny that you say that, because most of my sessions are all online. I don't
Okay.
meet with in person so much anymore, simply because of where I live. So I live on an island in the Netherlands. So I have clients in the United States and in Europe, in the Middle East. Yeah. So what happens is I tap on my body and they tap on their body, following along with me. But I do, if sometimes I do retreats with other practitioners, and then I will tap on them, and I'll also get participants tapping on each other, or of
Each
course they'll
other.
tap on themselves. Yeah, this is pretty cool. It's really, really nice. But also, sometimes people don't have the physical ability to tap on themselves. They have some sort of ailment or whatnot, or a muscular issue. And so I'll ask them to imagine, maybe they can close their eyes or keep their eyes open, whatever they prefer. Imagine me tapping on them, or they can imagine themselves tapping on them if they'd like. Or we can go even really super far out. Imagine an angel or a guide, or anything that you want, you can imagine tapping on you. So that is another alternative if the actual physical ability to do it isn't possible.
Okay, that's fantastic. And that's similar to what you said earlier that, the tapping is just one technique. There's visualization and all these other
Yeah.
things that you're taught. And so that sounds like a practice of visualization as well at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite techniques is we use parts work a lot in EFT. So it's kind of like you heard yourself say it. There's a part of me that feels like this isn't me, and that's just a really great indicator of, oh, this is great. Let's do some parts work now. And so I can even have a person imagine this part that's having the challenge. I remembered when I was 15, the dentist did this to me, at my face, for example. That's where this fear or this phobia popped up. So I would start to work with that part and what the part came to believe and what the part was fearful of. And we can then imagine your present day self in your mind's eye with your eyes closed, tapping on that part. And that's another really lovely technique, where you don't necessarily have to do it on your physical body if you're not able to, but you can still see the imagery of actually tapping on the tapping points, and physical releases happen. People start to swallow deeper, they start to breathe deeper. I'll see the shoulders will relax. It's almost like a full body exhale happens. And so it still works just as fine as though as you're actually tapping or untapping on your body. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more about human design now. I think probably if you want to share with us first kind of what is human design, again, for the listener that perhaps hasn't heard of it or has only heard of it briefly, and then we can kind of move over to, how they overlap and how you integrate both of those in your practice. So I did send my chart to you this morning.
Yeah, right
You got
here.
it? Okay, fantastic. So we can talk a little bit about mine specifically, but there are, I guess, essentially different categories in human design, or different, I'm not sure if that's the right way to describe them, different kind of pockets that people would fall into. So yeah, I'd love for you to share with us a little bit more about human design.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little condensed version. So in this is going to sound far out for a lot of people, but I think the people that listen to your podcast are like probably like, yeah, this is super awesome. So I don't even probably have to give that caveat. But anyway, this man from Canada, actually, Robert Allen Krakauer, in 1987, he was living in Ibiza. And he was coming home to this little, almost like a little shack where he lived. He lived alone. And he just noticed this light beaming out of the place where he was living. And he was a bit like, what? And so he enters and he ends up having this really crazy cosmic mystical experience. And he really resisted it. I mean, he's now passed, but when he shares about bringing human design to the world, he's like, I did not want this. I did not want this in my life. I did not want this information, which I really like about his story, to be quite honest. So it ended up that he starts to hear this voice, and this voice is literally channeling the entire human design system to him. And this voice channeled to him for 8 days and 8 nights. And he fought it and fought it and fought it. And finally, he was like, I am not going to be able to win. And I'm going to have to basically take this information in. So he wrote everything by hand. And essentially, what he was told is it was kind of like a little secret to the universe for earthlings, if you will, that we all have an energy type. And that there's this like science of differentiation. Human design is called the science of differentiation. And even though we each have an energy type, and our energy runs in our own bodies in a certain way according to our energy type, our aura type, and even though we're different, we can still respect and love each other and appreciate our differences and essentially relate to each other according to what your particular type is. So for example, you're a manifesting generator and I'm a projector. And we're very, very different because of our aura type, our energy type. But I know how to interact with you based on, having studied it and trained in it and worked in human design. So that way I can respect the way that you prefer to operate and prefer to work. And if you learned about the projector, then you could do the same with me. So that's essentially what the purpose of the program is. So there are 4 aura types. And so you've got the sacral or the manifesting generator and generator aura type, which is open and enveloping. That's your aura type, Livia. Then there's mine called a projector, and projectors have a penetrating and an absorbing aura. And then we've got the manifester, which is a provocative, impactful, bold, closed, repellent aura, protective aura. And then we've got the reflector aura, which is sampling and discerning. It's also a digesting aura. It's also a resistant aura. But then we've got 5 design types. So the generators and manifesting generators have the same type of aura, that open enveloping one. So but we've got the energy types. So we've got manifester, manifesting generator, generator, projector, and reflector. And each of our types has a specific strategy essentially to follow to take decisions that will help us live the most optimal, fulfilling life. And we have an authority that helps us live this strategy out that will help us live what's called our signature. So you as a manifesting generator are here to have a passionate and peacefully satisfying life. For me as a projector, I'm here to have a successful life, for example. Manifestors are here to have a peaceful and free life. Reflectors are here to have a life full of surprise and delight and awe. And generators are here to have a satisfactory life, a joyful, satisfactory life. And I like human design because it literally is working with basically these meridians through the circuitry, through the channels, and through the gates, as we call them in human design. And we have 9 centers, 9 energetic centers, and each of these centers have a different theme or a different meaning to them. And essentially they are like, there are organs. You've got the heart, you've got the spleen, for example, in human design, which of course we are working with. in EFT. Human design is a combination of the Hindu chakra system, Kabbalah, Western astrology, and the I Ching. So it's this beautiful synthesis of ancient information, ancient practices. And what I noticed was missing in human design was how to make it practical. So
Mm,
you're told to follow your strategy and your authority as a manifesting generator. You're told to follow your strategy and authority as a projector. And then life essentially is supposed to be easy and hunky-dory. But it isn't that easy if you don't know the how. And so when I started working with EFT, I was like, this is the how, because you're actually touching your body, you're getting into your body, you're having these emotional releases, you're having a somatic experience, you're becoming embodied, and you're regulating your nervous system. You're building up emotional agility, and you're also able to work with the part of you that has been conditioned. In human design, the idea is you have this conditioned not self, all the stuff you were told to do, all the stuff you were told to be that went against the true essence of who you are. And the
mm,
purpose of design is that you start to live the self by going through a deconditioning process that at least lasts 7 years. But if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to implement your strategy and authority as part of your 7-year deconditioning process in human design, how are you ever going to get there? And to me, the answer is EFT, because it's very practical. You're really working with the not self and to get to the self.
mhm.
And so, for example, when I'm working with a manifesting generator, how you know you're in the not self, according to EFT, is frustration and impatience and dissatisfaction. And how you know you're in the self is through this peaceful, passionate satisfaction. So I might say, if I'm working with a manifesting generator, even though I'm really frustrated right now, I invite in the possibility of satisfaction. And I'm using the wording and from human design and just filling in the EFT script really beautifully according to your design type.
That's so fascinating, and like you said, it's really, it's it's really pulling in from all these kind of ancient teachings and understandings, and it's now you're tying it into another modality with the EFT, which is just amalgamating all these incredible things together to really heal and help and move energy through the body. Like, I just find this
Yeah.
so fascinating. So, for people who aren't sure of their human design type, um, how can they find that out?
Yeah, there's a lot of places that they can go for free. So I gave you one called myhumandesign.com. These are not my links, by the way. So yeah, myhumandesign.com, quantumhumandesign.com. That's also a place you can go for free. Bodygraph.io. That's another place you can run your chart for free. Jovianarchive.com is another place you can run for free. If you just type in free human design chart in a search engine, you'll get a lot of places having links where you can run your chart for free.
Fantastic. And anyone who hasn't done that, just by simply finding out what your chart is and reading through and understanding a little bit better about yourself, it gives you so much clarity. And
Yes.
yeah, it really helps you kind of, it just connects the dots and kind of
Yeah.
helps you realize like some of those parts work, as you talked about before, some of those parts of you that you maybe really do like or kind of resist and feel a bit sticky, they all just kind of start to make sense a little bit once you kind of get that description of, oh, this is the energetic makeup of who I am. And it's a really powerful practice to just simply go and find that information. So I do encourage anyone listening right now to do that. I'll have all of those links in the show notes so you can check that out. um, Beautiful. So, I mean, you did already describe to us how they're overlapping. You did give us an example of kind of how you incorporate human design into your EFT practice. I'm wondering if now is a good time to do a session and for you to take us through and see how we go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're willing to talk with me today?
I
See,
am, yeah.
so I'm just gonna, is it okay if I just share some little things that I did notice from your chart and
Yes,
also,
please.
and I will make it quick. And also something that I noticed before I even got your chart. And this is something, yes. even before I got your chart. So I have to share, I just got Livia's chart today, and we met a couple of days ago for our free little pre-interview, just to get to know each other. And so I didn't have her chart then, but I wondered if you were a manifesting generator before you told me that you were, because of the use of your throat. So something that's really, really crucial for manifesting generators is this piece of communication, is this piece of articulation, because you all have your throats defined. And I didn't know if you were a manifesting generator, but I thought, I wonder if she is. I bet she is, especially having a podcast. So I find a lot of manifesting generators and manifestors as well, because they also always have their throat defined, have podcasts. It's so fascinating to me. And then, of course, you told me you were a manifesting generator, but I didn't know what your authority was, as we call it in human design. And I didn't know what your profile was. And then I found out that you're emotionally defined, which made so much sense because of your podcast emotions and everything that you're working with respect to emotions untapped. And I was like, oh, wow, this is brilliant. This, you can't make this up. And I think that's why I fell in love with human design, is because it was so instantaneously validating. And I think when your listeners pull their charts, they will feel that sense of, oh my God, I knew it. This explains why I do this, or this explains why I'm like that. So I just had to share that with you, that I thought that was super cool. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is you, why you're here, you have like, we call it like your gift to the world, essentially. And you have gate 32 and what we call your sun consciousness. Who cares where this is? Don't worry about it. Just remember the gift part for now. And basically that is having the energy to sense where change needs to occur within a community and bring forth this well thought out, well felt out change. And people naturally follow your lead and gravitate to you for that specific reason. So essentially that's what you're doing already with your podcast, is you've got this community, you sensed, you knew that there needed to be change with respect to emotions, and you're bringing forth that change, and people are following along by listening and being here. So, right? Beautiful,
Yeah,
isn't
wow. I'm almost like in tears over that. That's such a fascinating reflection and just kind of what's the word? Just kind of reading that out to me from your understanding and knowledge about it, and it rings so true. I mean, without realizing it in those words and in that sense, yeah, that is exactly what I'm doing. And I really do believe and feel that this is my soul's purpose, to do this work, to have these kind of conversations, to share these kind of conversations, and to continue these conversations with the people that need to, further understand and begin to work on themselves in this way. So, yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much for reading that and sharing that back to me. That's fascinating.
it is, isn't it? And it is from a human design perspective, it is your purpose. It is why you're here. So, so yeah, I'm glad you took that in, and I just thought this is really important to share. Okay, so if you feel comfortable, I'd like for us to start with a place of frustration, since that would be the not self place that the manifesting generator goes to. Other words could be dissatisfaction, Livia, or it could be impatience, or even obstinance, feeling obstinate or defiant on something, or even anger, because manifesting generators, if the frustration goes unchecked, then it becomes anger. So if you feel comfortable, what are some things that can bring that about for you, or maybe one main thing?
It's funny that you say the with the frustration and the anger, because I do feel like I harbor a lot of anger inside me from past experiences, the way I was mistreated by, past relationships, not being in control of a lot of situations that I felt like I needed to have control over. Um, can you repeat the question again, and then I can.
Yeah. So, well, it sounds like relationships, actually. I think you answered it.
Yeah,
So it's like
okay.
frustration or anger, then it's the mistreatment around relationships. Where do you feel it in your body?
Yeah, so this has always been a tricky one for me to really tune in to where in the body I'm feeling it.
Go ahead and close your
Ah,
eyes. Let's see if that helps.
sure.
And I don't want you to go into anything that, really like hurt you hardcore and go into trauma or anything, but maybe you can think about something, that mistreatment that you mentioned. That was a theme.
Yeah. I'm
And then,
kind of feeling it in my shoulders,
okay.
the tops of my shoulders.
And what's it feel like if you could describe it?
Just feels tense.
Mm.
Just feels knotted and tense.
So I noticed that you have taste as your strongest taste, your strongest sense, your cognition human design. If it were a taste, what would it taste like?
Bitter.
Mm. So it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yes.
Okay. And this mistreatment, this anger, if you were to score it right now on a 0 to 10, how it feels now, and 10 is the highest, 0 is not so much, what would you score it? What would you give it?
Right now, probably a 2.
Okay. All right. Let's start tapping then. So you're just going to join me at the side of the hand, and your listeners can follow along and tap with us too. So I'll just describe from them. If you were on the side of the hand, like people might call it the karate chop point. Like if you were to karate something, you would use the side of your hand, and you're going to use your opposite hand and just tap with your fingers. You can use as many fingers as you'd like while you're tapping on the side of your hand. And then you're going to repeat after me, and your listeners can do the same, even though
Even though
I have this anger.
I have this anger,
This anger is really frustrating.
this anger is really frustrating,
And I feel this anger in my shoulders.
and I feel this anger in my shoulders.
It's like tension.
It's like tension.
That's okay.
That's okay.
I'm acknowledging this today.
I'm acknowledging this today.
Even though I've got some anger and frustration,
Even though I've got some anger and frustration,
when I think about mistreatment in relationships,
when I think about mistreatment in relationships,
I still deeply and completely
I still deeply and completely
love, honor, and accept myself.
love, honor, and accept myself.
So this is me asking you. That was a swallow, right? I saw you
Yeah.
take a swallow. So that's a good release. Yeah. And that happens oftentimes when we start articulating these feelings and we start articulating these emotions. And very good for a manifesting generator, by the way. Lots of swallows is really good. All right. Even though
Even though
I'm acknowledging this frustration and anger today,
I'm acknowledging this frustration and anger today,
and this tension in my shoulders about it,
and this tension in my shoulders about it,
I'm still inviting in
I'm still inviting in
the possibility of
the possibility of
peaceful satisfaction.
peaceful satisfaction
And peaceful satisfaction
and peaceful satisfaction
in present and future relationships.
in present and future relationships.
So we're going to start going through the tapping points. If it bothers your face, let me know, okay? All right, top of the head, this angry frustration.
This angry frustration,
Okay, we're moving to the face. Let me know, okay? This angry frustration.
this anger and frustration,
For your listeners who are not watching, we're at the eyebrows. We're inside the eyebrows. Side of the eyes, this angry frustration.
this anger and frustration.
Are you okay with your face, Livy? I
Yeah,
just wanted to. Okay. Under the eyes, on the bony bits, this angry frustration.
this angry frustration.
And I'm just going to check in with you. How are the shoulders?
That they feel a lot less tense. I
Yeah.
noticed it when we were still on the hand that I could like feel it easing off. Yeah,
Mm,
it's
okay.
incredible.
Nice. Under the nose, this angry frustration.
This angry frustration,
On the chin, my angry frustration.
my angry frustration,
On the chest, right under the collarbone, my feelings of anger and frustration.
my feelings of anger and frustration.
So something I want to share with you that happens is I'll have releases also for people that I'm working with. So I'm having a burping release right now. Is that another swallow? Yeah, I just saw
Yeah,
another. Okay, good. Under the arm, like at the bra strap for us ladies, You can do it on both sides, like with both hands this way if you prefer, or just one across, reaching that arm across. This anger and this frustration.
This anger and this frustration.
Top of the head. I'm acknowledging this anger and frustration.
I'm acknowledging this anger and frustration.
All right, shake that out. Give your arms a little bit of a break. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes or keep them open, whatever you prefer, and just kind of place your hands wherever you feel you'd like. I just want to see where you place them. Are they on your, did you put them on your tummy?
They're just kind of on my lap, just kind
Oh,
of
you're
by
not
my,
ready.
yeah, just kind of up
Yeah.
like
Okay.
this, just kind of on my pubic bone.
Yeah, I was curious where you were going to place. You can see mine are, well, your eyes are closed, but mine are like on my chest, and I'm a self-projector, and that's where I feel my authority in the G center, as we call it in human design. So just notice the energy now. And if you can describe what you feel, what you notice.
Definitely notice there's less tension in my shoulders and
Mm.
the tops of my shoulders as I described before.
And how about the anger
And
and frustration?
yeah, I definitely feel it feels like there has been it feels as though that's hard to describe. I'm feeling like I'm noticing my entire body is kind of, I'll say tingling perhaps
Yeah, yeah.
on a very synchronistic level. If that like
Ah,
it's very kind of like mild tingling, but it's all the way kind of through from my feet all the way, up my legs, up my torso, all the way to the top of my head. Like it's all just kind of one, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
that does make sense. Yes, it does. To
As
me, it
opposed
doesn't.
to Yeah, as opposed to before it was like really tense in my shoulders and then kind of, I could kind of feel like just because I've been sitting for a while too, like my lower back and my bum was like starting to get a little bit numb. And now it all just kind of feels the same.
Yes, yes, yes. Very, very great description, actually. And this is something that we commonly hear as EFT therapists, where at the beginning, like you said, there's just focused energy. It's hyper tense in one particular area. And then after we tap, it's like the energy is uniform. It's all flowing,
Yeah.
essentially, direction in time together.
Yeah, almost like if I could kind of use a bit of an analogy of like a weighted blanket. It's just kind of like there's a weighted blanket over my whole body, and so it's all the weight is all kind of dispersed evenly.
Yes, yes, that's the phrase, dispersed evenly. And that essentially is what we're going for. Is that so you're feeling, Olivia, you're feeling the meridians basically recalibrate. You're feeling them come
Yeah.
into balance, and therefore the flow of energy isn't disrupted anymore. It's disrupted when we can isolate this tension in one place, in the shoulders, for example. And now you're saying, well, I noticed it leave. I felt the shoulder tension sort of just dissolve. And that tingling sensation is the energy is moving, it's breaking itself up. Yeah. And I'm looking at the time, but we could always do another round, or if for your demo purposes, if that was enough, we can also stop there.
Yeah,
Your
no,
choice.
we can do another round. I think that was really interesting. I'd love to go through it again. I can always, separate these parts and we can do a part 1, part 2 of the episode and have the this practice being its own kind of piece. So that's not a problem at all. I'm not too worried about time. Yeah, we can do one more if you like.
Yeah, let's do one more with respect to the beliefs, because really
Okay.
what I found, especially working this long now with EFT, is it's one thing for us to notice the energy and how it shows up in the body and what it feels, but it's a whole different thing when we take on the belief. So I want to know, what is your belief about having anger or having frustration? What do you tell
Hmm.
yourself or say about yourself when you're angry or frustrated?
Kind of that I shouldn't have it, that I shouldn't experience it, that it's a negative uh, emotion that I sometimes feel very intensely, and that it's kind of wrong to feel that.
Yeah. Great. Let's start right there. So we're going to go to the side of the hand again, that karate chop point that is it's often referred to as. And repeat after me. Even though
Even though
I have a belief
I have a belief
I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
The truth is,
The truth is,
and I'll let you fill in that blank. What's the truth about anger and frustration?
the truth is it's healthy to feel these emotions,
Yeah, great. Great job. Even though
even though
I've had a belief
I've had a belief
that anger and frustration is wrong.
that anger and frustration is wrong.
The truth is, it's okay to feel these things.
The truth is it's okay to feel these things.
It's healthy.
It's healthy.
And my emotions are messengers,
And my emotions are messengers.
even though
Even though
a part of me has had a belief.
a part of me has had a belief.
Were those burps?
Big swallow.
Follows,
Big,
okay.
big swallow.
Yeah, they were so big, I thought they were burps. I thought they were a burping release. Even though a part of me has had this belief,
Even though a part of me has had this belief,
another part of me knows that it's okay to have these emotions
another part of me knows that it is okay to have these emotions
and that these emotions are messengers and guides.
and that these emotions are messengers and guides.
This belief, top of the head,
This belief,
at the eyebrow point, this belief,
this belief,
side of the eyes. My belief I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
my belief I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
Under the eyes. I feel this belief in my, where do you feel it in your body? If you have to close your eyes, feel free.
I feel this belief in my chest, in my
Great.
just kind of between the breasts in the middle. I guess
Great.
that's not so much the chest, almost good between the chest and the stomach, I suppose.
Solar plexus.
Yes.
Which is that is what your authority is, by the way. You're an emotional an emotionally defined manifesting generator. So you have your emotional solar plexus defined. So that's very interesting there. Yeah. Under the nose. And what does it feel like? The sensation in the solar plexus about this belief.
And it feels like empty space, like a hole. Like there's a
Mm,
circular space where you could almost reach into that isn't
mm. Like
there's
a
nothing
vacuum?
there. Yeah, like a black
Yeah.
hole kind
Black
of
hole, black hole. Yeah.
sucking. Yeah,
Mm, okay. On the chin. This black hole sensation
this black hole sensation
in my solar plexus on the
in my
chest,
solar in my solar plexus.
under the arm. When I think about this belief,
When I think about this belief
top of the head, that I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
that I shouldn't be angry or frustrated.
I feel this sensation at the eyebrow point, sorry.
I feel this sensation
Side of the eyes like a black hole,
like a black hole
under the eyes, in my solar plexus,
in my solar plexus.
under the nose when I think I shouldn't be frustrated or angry.
When I think I shouldn't be frustrated or angry.
So join me now at the chin, tapping on the chin. And can you tune back into that black hole sensation? As some more swallowing, that's great. Oh,
Hmm.
that was nice. I saw your face change and smile. There's more radiance. What happened there?
Just tuning into that space, it feels covered up, kind of not necessarily filled, the whole filled, but just kind of covered up.
Ah, like if it were a manhole and you put the manhole cover on top?
Yeah, exactly like that. Yeah.
So tell me, give me an uh-huh or an uh-uh. Is that like a safe feeling? Uh-huh or uh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm doing that questioning on purpose because you are a manifesting generator and yes, no, or sacral questions, as we call them, are really good questions, closed-ended questions that bring this stable response of an uh-huh or an uh-uh sound or an or an mm-mm sound.
Oh,
Okay, so we've gotten you to a safety place with respect to this belief and the feeling around it. Good stuff. Okay, on the chest, I've got a manhole cover on my black hole.
I've got a manhole cover on my black hole,
And I feel really safe right now.
and I feel really safe right now.
All right, and I'm going to have you fill in the blank here as we go to the top of the head. And I want you to say, I'm choosing to believe.
I'm choosing to believe.
This is going to be about the anger, frustration. What are you choosing to believe now?
I choose to believe that anger and frustration is there to guide me and teach me what I
Hmm.
need to learn.
Does that feel good? Uh-huh, uh-uh, when you say that.
Uh-huh.
Again, uh-huh. Okay, good. Nice. Really great. Great job. All right, shake that out. Give those arms a rest. Nice. And if you want, you can tune back into the energy again. Just kind of notice what's happening in the body and just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, it's just similar again. Like just all energy is kind of flowing equally through
Mm,
different parts of the body. It's all one. Like it's all
yeah. Flowing evenly, dispersing evenly.
yeah.
And let's come back to the belief, that belief I shouldn't be angry or I shouldn't be frustrated. If you were to score the truth of that belief on a 0 to 10, 10 is like, yep, I absolutely believe that. 0, not so much. Where would you fall?
Yeah, 0. I think
Oh,
I feel more just like having the awareness around like when that comes up to just kind of be at peace with it
mm,
and like really respect it. There's like a respect
mm,
as a teacher. It's like the anger knows something that I don't. I've got to listen.
yeah. Beautiful. That's a massive shift. That's huge. Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I'm really proud of you. Well done.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. That
Oh,
was
you look so
incredible.
peaceful.
I feel
Yeah.
peaceful.
Your face looks so peaceful and calm and at ease. Yeah.
Wow,
That's
that's
manifesting joy.
fascinating.
Cool, right?
Yes, very cool. That's incredible.
Thank you. I'm glad that you did that with me. Thank you very much.
Wow. Yes, thank you for taking us through that practice.
You.
And I'm just gonna just note that obviously this is a podcast, but the video version of this is recorded and is on YouTube. So for those that have potentially followed along with us, and would like to do it again, I encourage you to go check out the video version of this, and you can follow along perhaps a little bit more closely in just seeing what we're actually doing and the tapping points if you're unfamiliar. So that is available to you as well. Wow.
Well, yeah.
Amazing. That was fantastic. I'm just like, I'm very
Yeah,
like,
super zen right now, huh?
yeah, super zen. I'm like, okay, oh, I have a show to do here. Yeah, let's continue. But I'm also like, woo, I could just sit in this.
Maybe drink some water, by the way, when we're done. Drink
Yeah.
some. If your body wants a nap or something, allow that to happen. You might have other moments of other releases throughout the day. Sometimes amazing laughter sometimes happens. Sometimes some crying, of course, and it's all normal. It's all okay. You can always tap just a little bit more again if you need to, just to kind of. But I think you're probably going to be in this calm, peaceful place, is what I imagine.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too. And I welcome all of that, whatever is to come, the laughter, the tears, whatever is meant for that continuation of the energy to release. I actually love crying. Like, I mean, I don't obviously when we cry, we feel sad, but I'm always very grateful for the experience of crying because I know that it's an energy release. And let's be honest, like, when was the last time you cried that you didn't feel better afterwards?
Yeah.
Like, you feel so good. So when I'm crying, if I've ever cried in front of, a partner or your family or your friends are like, "Oh, it's gonna be okay." And I'm like, "I know, I'm
Yeah.
good." Like, I'm crying, but I'm like, "I'm good though."
That's right. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I always tell people, please don't stop the crying. Please allow it to happen. Your body wants that to be expressed. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The work you do is so incredible, Lori, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the membership that you have, because this is a great space for people who are looking for this kind of healing to come and be guided and to work with you inside this community. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the empowered.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just as you said, I have a membership. It's a monthly membership and you can come and go as you please. It is $37 per month. I like to keep it, at an affordable rate so people have access to this work. And what I do in there is what we did today, bridging human design and EFT together. So that way you can actually live the essence of you and you have a safe space with a small community of other people that are like-minded who are doing this work too. And what happens in the membership is we do twice monthly live tapping sessions every new moon and every full moon. And so we do new moon intention setting and live EFT tapping. Then we do full moon releasing and live EFT tapping. And I host a monthly masterclass in there where usually it's around human design because oftentimes the members have lots of questions around human design. But I have a class coming up. It's this month on the 17th of September, where I'm going to be, I don't know when this is going to air, but I keep all the replays up in there anyway in the membership, so people can always go back and watch the replays. But we're going to be doing EFT for our open centers in human design. So I'm going to be teaching about the centers and when they are open, what that actually means, and how EFT can support you in the areas in your chart that are open, they're undefined, where we actually get conditioned, as it's called in human design. And then I also do pop-up workshops in there, and we also there's a category, if you will, of human design that's called the solar transits, where the energy essentially changes every week because of the sun going through a particular gate in the human design chart. And we contemplate that and we work on that and we notice how the energy shows up in our body and what that feels like and how we can actually get conditioned by that. So that's another beautiful aspect of being a member.
Okay, fantastic. And I'd love to just wrap up with any final thoughts. And then if you want to share with us where people can find you, because you're quite active on multiple social media platforms as well.
Yeah, well, I just really want to thank you for being here. When I saw that you have this particular show, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a lovely fit because we both are dealing with emotional regulation and emotions and building emotional agility. So I appreciate you allowing me to come on with you and be part of your mission and part of your community. And with respect to where to find me, I suppose I could give my website is probably a great starting point because my socials are also there. So it's lifecoachlori.com, and I spell my name Laurie. So lifecoachlori.com. And then all my handles are the same at Life Coach Lori. So if you go to Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, the business page is Life Coach Lori. Nice and easy.
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been such a powerful experience, and you've, inspired me to look a little closer at EFT and perhaps start to incorporate this as a practice in my life because I've felt how, powerful it was to just do that one session with you. And I see the value in it. And I know that I've got a lot of my own things to work through. And as we all do, the healing journey never ends. And I really appreciate this insight to this practice and incorporating the human design as well. I think is fantastic. I really appreciate your guidance and just all your knowledge and expertise. You're very knowledgeable about these modalities and about the science behind it and how and why it all works. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the show, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope to see you, inside the membership. To answer some questions for the audience as well down the track. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Oh, I really look forward to that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And you have such a beautiful, so much more success and satisfaction with this community here. You're doing really, really great work. It's so important, I think, people understanding emotions and not judging them and working with them. Yeah. So thank you so much, Livia.
Thanks.